Good evening. This is All India Radio. I am Sharyu Varma Chopra and with me is VC Pramod with the evening news. The headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi embarks on a 4-day visit to the US to attend the UN General Assembly session. Prime Minister says his visit would strengthen comprehensive global strategic partnership with the US and other strategic partners. 76th session of UN General Assembly gets underway in New York. Health Ministry appeals to people to exercise caution during the festive season in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. India achieved yet another milestone in COVID-19 vaccination drive. Total vaccination crosses 83 crore mark. National Disaster Management Authority recommends ex gratia 50,000 rupees to the kin of those who died due to COVID-19. Centre informs Supreme Court. RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das says there are signs that the world is emerging from the shadow of the coronavirus. India hosts first India-United Kingdom Consular dialogue through video conferencing today. And in IPL cricket, a match is underway between Delhi Capitals and Sunrisers Hyderabad in Dubai. Nationwide free COVID-19 vaccination campaign at government facilities for those above 18 years is underway. We advise our young listeners to get vaccinated and also help others get vaccinated. We also advise our listeners not to lower their guard as COVID-19 remains a threat to our health. Please stay at home unless it is essential to go out and continue to follow these 3 simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene. For any COVID-related information and guidance, contact National Helpline numbers 011 23978046 and 1075. And now, the news in detail. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on his 4-day visit to the United States will meet top US CEOs. He will hold talks with US President Joe Biden and take part in the Quad Summit in Washington, D.C. It will be followed by his address to the 76th session of the UN General Assembly in New York on the 25th of September. In a statement before his departure, the Prime Minister said his visit to the US will be an occasion to strengthen the comprehensive global strategic partnership with that country and to consolidate relations with India's strategic partners, Japan and Australia, to take forward collaboration on important global issues. Mr. Modi said he will review the India-US Comprehensive Global Strategic Partnership with President Joe Biden and exchange views on regional and global issues of mutual interest. He said he is also looking forward to meeting Vice President Kamala Harris to explain opportunities for cooperation between the 2 nations, particularly in the area of science and technology. The Prime Minister said he will participate in the first in-person Quad Leaders Summit. Now we go live to our special correspondent Atul K. Tiwari in Washington, D.C. to know more about the expectations and the major developments related to the PM's visit. Welcome, Atul. A few quick questions. What are the engagements of the Prime Minister during his 4-day visit to the U.S. and what has been the response thereof?
Sharyu, Prime Minister will arrive in Washington in the first leg of his visit. He will be greeted at the Dallas International Airport by a small delegation of Indian community members. The very next day, on 23rd of September, Prime Minister will interact with the top CEOs of US companies from Qualcomm, Adobe, First Solar, Blackstone and General Atomics. Then he will hold bilateral meetings with his Australian counterpart Scott Morrison and the Japanese Premier Yoshihide Suga. Mr. Modi will have a one-to-one meeting with the US Vice President Kamala Harris. They would explore areas of cooperation in science and technology.
Atul, can you give us a sense of what are the areas of common interest likely to emerge in Prime Minister Modi's deliberations with the US President Joe Biden?
Yes, Shadu. Day 2 of the Prime Minister's visit to US is marked by his in-person meeting with the US President Joe Biden at the Oval Office in White House. The two leaders will take stock of the developments in Afghanistan, the increasing radicalization and cross-border terrorism, Indo-Pacific, cyber security, COVID vaccine initiative, clean energy partnership, boost to trade and investment ties, and defense and security collaboration, among others. In his departure statement, Mr. Modi has already stated that it will be an occasion to strengthen the comprehensive global strategic partnership with the U.S. The two leaders will also exchange views on a host of regional and global issues.
The Quad Summit is also going to be held in Washington. What does that convey?
Well, as you are aware, Quad consists of India, United States, Japan, and Australia. It calls for building resilient global supply chains which are not dependent on only one Asian country. The Quad Vaccine Initiative to boost global vaccine supplies, the quest for a free and open Indo-Pacific, partnership in emerging technologies, and cyber security will be up for discussion at the Quad Summit. The four leaders are likely to announce an agreement to work together on the safety of the supply chain on semiconductors.
The PM's address to the UN General Assembly is eagerly awaited everywhere. What is the likely focus this year, Atul?
Prime Minister will conclude his visit with the address at the 76th session of the UN General Assembly in New York on 25th September. The global community will be all ears to him on the pressing global challenges, including the COVID-19 pandemic, the need to combat terrorism, climate change, and other important issues.
Thank you, Atul, so much for joining us today.
The 76th session of the United Nations General Assembly got underway in New York last night. Over 100 global leaders are attending the deliberations. Meanwhile, Brazil's Health Minister Marcelo Quiroga tested positive for COVID-19 hours after accompanying President Jair Bolsonaro to the United Nations General Assembly in New York. He had also met British Prime Minister Boris Johnson at the UN before testing positive. US President Joe Biden was the first speaker as per the tradition. In his maiden speech at the UN General Assembly, Mr. Biden urged the nations to forge a global unity against common threats like the COVID-19 pandemic, technological threats, and autocratic nations. The US President said bombs and bullets can't defend against COVID-19 or its future variants. Health Ministry has asked people to exercise caution during the festive season so that there is no jump in COVID cases. In COVID Charcha on Twitter Spaces today, Joint Secretary in the Ministry Love Agarwal said the next 3 months are going to be critical and there must be no laxity. He requested people to celebrate festivals in appropriate manner by following COVID-appropriate protocol. He stressed that large celebratory gatherings must be avoided and inter-district and intra-district travelling during festivals for family gatherings must also be curtailed. He said celebration should be done in a safe and cautious manner. He said COVID-appropriate behavior must be followed at all times. Mr. Agarwal said the battle against COVID can only be won with combined efforts of the government and citizens of the country. India has crossed yet another milestone in the COVID vaccination drive, with the total vaccination crossing the 83 crore mark today. Union Health Ministry has termed it as yet another achievement in its fight against COVID-19. The Health Ministry said recovery is currently at 97.77% and it is the highest since March last year. The Centre informed the Supreme Court today that the National Disaster Management Authority has recommended ex gratia 50,000 rupees to be given to the kin of those who died due to COVID-19. The Centre further said that ex gratia will be provided from State Disaster Response Fund (SDRF) and subject to the cause of death being certified as COVID-19. The ex gratia assistance will continue to be provided for deaths that may occur in the future phases of the COVID-19 pandemic as well, or until further notification, the affidavit said. Compensation will be given to families of even those deceased who were involved in COVID relief operations or associated in preparedness activities. The cause of death needs to be certified as COVID-19 in accordance with the Health Ministry guidelines. In our bilingual live phone-in program, Corona Jagrukta series, Dr. S. Banerjee, SMS Medical College Jaipur, will be with us today to answer the queries related to coronavirus. Listeners can ask questions to the expert from 9:30 p.m. on toll-free telephone number 1800-115767 and on telephone number 011-2331-4444. You can also post your queries on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts by hashtag AskAIR. This live program can be heard on FM Gold channel and additional frequencies from 9:30 p.m. onwards.
Education Minister Narendra Pradhan today held a meeting on universalization of quality education through digital education. The discussion centered on leveraging satellite technology and internet to develop an integrated digital ecosystem. During the meeting, Mr. Pradhan called for an innovative approach to leverage technology to further expand the existing platforms to cover all spectrums of school education, higher education, skill development and teachers training. He called for strengthening and expanding the existing Swayam Prabha initiative and synergize initiatives like National Digital Education Architecture and National Educational Technology Forum. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has appealed to people to generously contribute to the Armed Forces Flag Day Fund, which is used in rehabilitation and welfare of dependents of brave soldiers who were killed in action or disabled. He said the Flag Day gives all countrymen an opportunity to fulfill this obligation.
Under Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, 56.53% of the food grains have been lifted in the country under Phase 4. The Andaman and Nicobar is topmost in the country to have lifted highest percentage of food grains. The Union Territory has lifted 93% of the allocated food grains under PMGKAY 4 from July to 15th of September this year. Union Minister for Information and Broadcasting and Youth Affairs and Sports Anurag Thakur today reached Lucknow on a 3-day visit to the state as part of the BJP's Central Poll Team. The team, under the leadership of Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan, will discuss poll strategy with the state BJP functionaries in Lucknow and Gorakhpur during its 3-day visit from today.
Union Minister Dharmendra Pradhan has called for a conducive environment for talks to settle the border dispute between Odisha and Andhra Pradesh. In a letter to Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister Y.S. Jagan Mohan Reddy today, Mr. Pradhan has said there is a need to build an enabling environment to facilitate talks between the states in view of the flared-up situation on the ground. We have this report.
Union Minister Mr. Pradhan has suggested a four-pronged initiative to resolve the border dispute between the two states. It includes retreat of armed police forces from the disputed villages and immediate withdrawal of cases registered against local representatives and government officials in both the states, putting on hold new structural construction and earth-moving activities except for essential public utility facilities, bilateral discussion between the chief ministers of both the states to lay the broad parameters for future roadmap, and joint working group-level talks at the level of chief secretaries or development commissioners of both the states. The Union Minister has assured the Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister of all support on behalf of the Union Government to facilitate an amicable environment for bilateral talks. Girish Chandra Das, AIR News, Bhubaneswar.
Indian naval ship INS Tabar was mission deployed in international waters for over 3 months from 13th June this year. During the deployment, she made 11 port calls in 9 countries in Europe and Africa, traversing nearly 20,000 nautical miles. The ship received a warm reception in all countries from local officials and was visited by several local dignitaries. The ship's port visits saw various social and professional interactions conducted with the host countries. India hosted the first India-United Kingdom Consular dialogue through video conferencing today. The Indian delegation was led by Devesh Uttam, Joint Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, and the UK side was led by Jennifer Anderson, Director, Consular Services, Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. At this inaugural consular dialogue, the two sides discussed ways to further strengthen people-to-people contacts between the two countries as part of the India-UK 2030 roadmap. Both sides agreed to hold the next round of this dialogue in 2022 in London at a mutually convenient date. Union Minister Piyush Goyal today said it is a matter of great satisfaction that India and the UAE have launched negotiations for a mutually beneficial, comprehensive economic partnership agreement. Issuing a joint press statement with UAE Minister of State for Foreign Trade, Dr. Thani bin Ahmed Al Zayudi, Mr. Goyal said the first round of CEPA negotiations will be held tomorrow and day after.
We are able to formally launch our discussions during the Vanijya Saptah that we are celebrating as a part of the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. The first round of CEPA negotiations will be held tomorrow and day after in Delhi. Both sides have drawn up a very aggressive and ambitious time frame and aim to conclude negotiations by December 2021 itself.
You are listening to the evening news on All India Radio. A reminder of the headlines before we move on. Prime Minister Narendra Modi embarks on a 4-day visit to the US to attend the UN General Assembly session. The Prime Minister says his visit would strengthen comprehensive global strategic partnership with the US and other strategic partners. 76th session of UN General Assembly gets underway in New York. Health Ministry appeals to people to exercise caution during the festive season in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. India achieved yet another milestone in COVID-19 vaccination drive. Total vaccination crosses 83 crore mark. National Disaster Management Authority recommends ex gratia 50,000 rupees to the kin of those who died of COVID-19. Centre informs Supreme Court. RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das says there are signs that the world is emerging from the shadow of coronavirus. India hosts first India-United Kingdom Consular dialogue through video conferencing today. And in IPL cricket, a match is underway between Delhi Capitals and Sunrisers Hyderabad in Dubai. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts.
चलो मिलकर एक शुरुआत करें, चलो एक फैसला आज करें, मास्क नहीं तो टोकेंगे, कोरोना को रोकेंगे, चलो एक इरादा करते हैं, चलो कुछ वादा करते हैं, मास्क नहीं तो टोकेंगे, कोरोना को रोकेंगे.
आजादी के अमृत महोत्सव के पावन अवसर पर आकाशवाणी समाचार के कार्यक्रम परिक्रमा में गुरुवार को शाम 4:45 पर सुनिए देश की आजादी की लड़ाई में अपना अमूल्य योगदान देने वाले भारतीय स्वतंत्रता संग्राम के सिपाही की वीर गाथा.
Welcome back to the evening news. RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das today said that there are signs that the world is emerging from the shadow of coronavirus. While delivering the keynote address at the 48th National Management Convention of the All India Management Association, Mr. Das said the time is right to plan for an economy which is stronger, more inclusive and sustainable. More from our correspondent.
Stating that the pandemic has provided a new impetus to technology-driven companies such as FinTech, EdTech and HealthTech, RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das said the forces of creative destruction are expected to boost productivity by encouraging greater competition, dynamism and innovation in several sectors of the economy. Talking about the achievements of India's manufacturing sector, Mr. Das said the country has turned from being an importer to an exporter of mobile phones. He said the trend is likely to spill over to other sectors also, enhancing India's share in global value chain and increasing the competitiveness of India's large, micro, small and medium enterprises. Nisha Rani, AIR News, Mumbai.
India has attracted foreign direct investment FDI inflow of $27.37 billion during the first 4 months of this financial year, which is 62% higher as compared to the corresponding period last financial year. Commerce Industry Ministry said the measures taken by the government on the fronts of FDI policy reforms, investment facilitation and ease of doing business have resulted in increased FDI inflows into the country. The ministry said FDI equity inflow also grew by 112% in the first 4 months of the financial year compared to the same period last year. Automobile industry has emerged as the top sector with 23% share of the total FDI equity inflow, followed by computer software and hardware with 18% and services sector by 10%.
As our nation celebrates its 75th year of independence, a series of events are being organized by the government as part of the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. Let's listen now to our special program, Azadi Ka Safar.
आजादी का अमृत महोत्सव।
Azadi Ka Safar with AIR News. Birth of a Nation. India's glorious freedom struggle is one of the greatest movements the modern world has ever witnessed. AIR News brings you a glimpse of the struggle every day.
100 years ago, on this day in 1921, Mahatma Gandhi took the epoch-making decision to only wear a simple dhoti and shawl for the rest of his life, a vow that became part of history as well as Mahatma's own identity.
All India Radio spoke to Director, National Gandhi Museum, A. Annamalai, about the historic day.
Considered to be one of the most important events in Gandhi's life, he changed his clothes like a poor farmer. The historic event took place on September 22nd, 1921 in the city of Madurai in Tamil Nadu. The people of Madurai gathered in thousands to welcome Gandhi, who came through Trichy, Srirangam and Dindigul on September 21st, 1921. Gandhi stayed at Ramji Kalyanji's house at West Massey Street as his guest. That night, Rajaji and P.S.S. Raja had a long discussion with Gandhi on his decision, but they could not convince Gandhi. He announced that he decided to change to a simple dress like a farmer. A barber was arranged and he shaved his head completely. The next morning, he took a bath, put on a cloth around his lower body and another cloth over his upper body, and proceeded to address a public meeting at what is now known as Gandhi Hotel on Kamaraj Road, Madurai.
Gandhiji became one with the poor through his attire, and in the infamous words of imperialist British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, became the half-naked fakir who defeated the might of the British Empire. Today we also remember the great educationist Karamveer Bhavrao Patil, who was born on this day in 1887 at Kolhapur, Maharashtra. Greatly influenced by the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi, he was a freedom fighter who understood the critical importance of self-reliant mass education as an integral part of the freedom movement.
He founded the Rayat Education Society and played an important role in educating the so-called backward castes and the low-income people. He was a prominent member of Satya Shodhak Samaj, founded by Mahatma Jyoti Rao Phule, and used to perform Satya Shodhaki Jalsas in the villages of Maharashtra and awaken the people to the dire consequences of the social evils of the time.
During his lifetime, Bhavrao established 108 secondary schools, 578 voluntary schools, 6 training colleges, 3 colleges and 38 boarding schools, with many of them being devoted to girls' education.
During a public meeting in 1921, Bhavrao met Gandhiji at Mumbai and was highly impressed by Gandhiji's appearance in a loincloth and his philosophy of khadi. Following this encounter, Bhavrao decided to adopt the khadi attire and follow Gandhian principles in everyday life.
Bhavrao adopted the motto, education through self-help and earn while you learn, which Gandhiji had enshrined in his Nai Talim system of education.
Bhavrao's sterling achievements is that within himself, he combined the inspiration from two Mahatmas, Gandhi and Phule, and carried forward the common principles of social reform. May we get inspired by his passion for mass education and work towards ensuring it for all Indians.
That brings us to the end of this episode of Azadi Ka Safar with AIR News. See you in the next episode tomorrow.
The government has accepted R.N. Ravi's resignation as interlocutor for the Naga peace process with immediate effect. The resignation was submitted by him today. Today is World Rhino Day. Indian Oil has made arrangements to celebrate the day in all petrol bunks and other outlets. The organization has made the Indian rhino as its mascot to protect the endangered wildlife found in Assam and West Bengal. Our Chennai correspondent has filed this report.
The greater one-horned rhino or the Indian rhino is the largest of rhino species found in North Indian states and Nepal. Assam has nearly 3/4 of rhinos in the world in Kaziranga National Park, Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary and Orang National Park. The International Rhino Foundation has said that rhinos in Kaziranga Park are being translocated to Manas National Park to protect them from being affected during floods at the Brahmaputra River. With the effort of the Indian government and the Indian Rhino Vision, the population of the greater rhinos have increased to more than 3,000. Joy, AIR News, Chennai.
In IPL cricket, Sunrisers Hyderabad were 100 for 6 in 17 overs against Delhi Capitals at the International Cricket Stadium in Dubai when reports last came in. Earlier, the Sunrisers won the toss and elected to bat. Last night, Rajasthan Royals beat Punjab Kings by 2 runs in the final ball thriller at the International Cricket Stadium in Dubai. Tomorrow, Mumbai Indians will take on Kolkata Knight Riders in Sheikh Zayed Stadium, Abu Dhabi at 7:30 p.m.
Now let's take a look at the weather forecast for tomorrow. The national capital Delhi will have generally cloudy sky with light rain. The temperature will vary between 25 and 32 degrees Celsius. Mumbai will have generally cloudy sky with heavy rain. The minimum temperature will be 24 degrees Celsius, while the maximum is expected to be around 29. Chennai is expected to have generally cloudy sky with light rain. The temperature will vary between 27 and 36 degrees Celsius. Kolkata will have generally cloudy sky with 1 or 2 spells of rain or thunder showers. The city will observe a minimum temperature of 26 degrees Celsius and a maximum of around 32 degrees. Srinagar will have mainly clear sky, becoming partly cloudy towards afternoon or evening. Temperature will hover between 14 and 30 degrees Celsius. Jammu will have partly cloudy sky with 1 or 2 spells of rain or thunder showers. The minimum temperature will be 22 degrees Celsius, while the maximum will be around 32 degrees. Leh is expected to have partly cloudy sky. The minimum and maximum temperature will be between 8 and 24 degrees Celsius. Gilgit will have generally cloudy sky with possibility of rain or thunderstorm or dust storm. The temperature will hover between 12 and 30 degrees Celsius. Muzaffarabad will have thunderstorms. The minimum temperature will be 15 degrees and the maximum will be around 25 degrees. Visakhapatnam will have generally cloudy sky with 1 or 2 spells of rain or thunder showers. The city will have observe a minimum temperature of 27 degrees Celsius and a maximum of around 32 degrees.
And now, before we end this bulletin, the headlines once again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi embarks on a 4-day visit to the US to attend the UN General Assembly session. Prime Minister says his visit would strengthen comprehensive global strategic partnership with the US and other strategic partners. 76th session of UN General Assembly gets underway in New York. Health Ministry appeals to people to exercise caution during the festive season in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic. India achieved yet another milestone in COVID-19 vaccination drive. Total vaccination crosses 83 crore mark. National Disaster Management Authority recommends ex gratia 50,000 rupees to the kin of those who died due to COVID-19. Centre informs Supreme Court. RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das says there are signs that the world is emerging from the shadow of coronavirus. India hosts first India-United Kingdom Consular dialogue through video conferencing today. And in IPL cricket, a match is underway between Delhi Capitals and Sunrisers Hyderabad in Dubai. Log on to our website www.newsonair.com and News on AIR app. And with that, we end the evening news. Good night.